with just some couple of war stories. I don't know. I've been having problems with my video screen. I thought I had it worked out. Rebooting my computer. I'm on my phone. So let's start with some war stories while my computer reboots.
I've got one from yesterday. I was driving to Monroe and stopped at the gas station and got out, got gas, and looked across. There's a guy right next to me, and I was like, "Man, it's sure it's cold outside because it's got cold the last couple of days." And we started talking for a second. I started to run inside, and I was like, "Wait just a minute." So I went in my car and I got a track. I keep one 10 reasons why Jesus died on the cross. And I said, "Man, can I give you something that changed my life?" And I gave him the track. And the guy kind of perked up and he goes, "Oh, I gave my life to Jesus at so and so time." And then he shows me the wristband on his arm that's Isaiah 41:10. So I quoted the verse that was on, his arm, and then we just kind of talked. And so I said, "Hey," and we visited for a minute, and I said, "Hey, can I said, if you ever need anything, let me know." I said, "What's your I said, let me send you my contact information." So as soon as I did that, I get his contact information. So I did that, and I want to just read through real quick what I sent to him. I got it right here. I sent him this. All right. I said, "Jason, so nice to meet you. Jesus' disciples asked him a question before he went to the cross. Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of the coming of and the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray." Are there many people being led astray today? Of course there are. So I sent him that. I said, Jesus went on to say, "And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold." You think most people realize that lawlessness is being increased right now and that people's love is growing cold? Absolutely. I mean, it's right from God's word. I said, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. So I just said, keep pressing on. If I can help you, let me know. So who knows, but the seed got out. He responded back and just said thanks for greeting, and we'll see.
We got a chance to go to the Grant Parish Prison Detention Center on Monday. I took a couple guys from Ruston, LaDavian White and Rob Spencer. They rap. Their group is called Lit Squad. And they had about 30 guys there. I think 16 of them gave their life to the Lord. And I'm picking 2 of them up this morning and bringing one to Ruston and one to New Orleans Teen Challenge to start our program.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty good. Rob Spencer, he shares the gospel in such a smooth way, goes from being in Adam to being in Christ, and it was really, really good. I got up and didn't really give a testimony, just spoke, about how I used to look for happiness and joy in drugs and your relationships and stuff. And, a lot of the guys in there knew me. Just told them what God had done for me and that he could do the same for them. And then I had brought a couple of the guys with me, a couple of our guys with me to give testimonies, and then just turned it over to them. And we had a time of prayer at the end, man. A lot of them guys was up at the altar just crying, and supposed to pick up another guy, hopefully Monday, to go. One of my good friends that I went and spoke with him after he got out of jail about 3 months ago, and just talked to him for about 45 minutes. I went over to his house and I was like, look, man, you keep on you stay out here, you're gonna wind up back in jail. I said, I can get you into our place today, and you won't have to worry about it. And all the stuff I told him, when I got to jail Monday night, he's back in jail because he didn't get out of there, and he said, man, everything you told me, he said, it happened. He said, here I am again. I said, man, it's gonna keep on happening over and over again if you don't do something different. But so hopefully he comes, and got a chance to pray with him and another one of my good friends, and it was a good time. We had a real good time.
My wife and I have a personal food bank that we feed people through this food bank, and sometimes we get extra food. People donate extra food, and we don't want it to go stale, so we put it in a bag with various toiletries and necessities. And when we see somebody that's homeless, we ask them, would they like to have a bag? And obviously, most of the time they take that bag, and it's got foods and toiletries and things of that sort. But we also put a New Testament in those bags. And I find that when I see somebody homeless and I have a bag, it makes me more bold, and I can look them in the eyes and I pursue them instead of being fearful they might pursue me. And so I took a bag to a guy named Roosevelt, and I asked him, did he want a bag? He says, thank you, sir. And he first asked me, he said, why are you wanting to do this? And I said, well, God tells me to do good to all men. And he said, well, the reason why I asked is I've been praying and I wanted to know if God was hearing my prayer. And I said, well, hopefully he is. He hears my prayer. And I told him there was a New Testament in the bag. Well, the last 3 days, my wife had seen Roosevelt. He hadn't been looking around. He'd been reading. And he'd been reading that New Testament for 3 days. And it really inspired us to continue that ministry.
Good deal.
Outstanding.
Excellent stuff.
Guys, my wife was at the hospital about 6 days, and she's doing real good, just so you know. But gosh, I had so many opportunities. Of course, I frequently I'll use those little pamphlet called Steps to Peace with God. But I just talked to so many people, and just as I went through my day over there. But it's hard for me to recount ones, but there was, I never had a situation where somebody was resistant. But when, I'll hold that little booklet up and says, I'd love to give you this. And I'll say different things to different people and after a conversation with them. But when they say steps to peace with God, when they see that, it's like a smile breaks out on their face and say, yeah, I'd love to know about this. Or you can talk to some and you'll know they're already a believer. But it was just some real good opportunities that developed.
I had I was in the operating room, and there were about 6 workers in there, and they got real quiet. The doctor was coming in, and I just said, "Are there any believers in here?" And I got some amazing responses from that, and got to share with the nurse after the procedure was done.
That's awesome right there.
I have a friend named, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sam.
Oh, okay. I've got a friend named Kenny, and that was about 3 weeks ago. I got a text from him that asked me if I would be willing to read a book that he has, and I said, "Well, yeah, I read a lot, so sure." He goes, "Well, it's the Quran," and I told him, "Well, I've read it before, because I did when I was incarcerated. I studied the Quran to be able to know what the Muslims in prison were, to know more of what was their background, so that I could then be able to talk to them about Christ." And so now, about 3 weeks later, and my friend Kenny lost his 11-year-old girl a week ago. She was hit by a car, and through that, this week, Kenny is now realizing, and through a lot of prayer and meeting with some of the other men that pray with me each morning, that he seems to be finding a lot more peace in Christ. And as he works through this, he and his wife are now asking me if I can pray with them and pray for them. And so it's been an amazing, sad, but amazing turnaround over the last 3 weeks. And we have the wake today for the little girl. And they'll be riding with me over to about an hour's drive to where the wake is. And we'll get to spend that time praying to God and praying with Christ, and just being able to bring them closer to what really matters. And so through this tragedy, there is still good.
How was your trip to New Iberia, Sam?
Say, what was that again?
How was your trip to New Iberia?
Oh, well, it was it was to Homer is where we went.
Homer?
Yeah. And it was it was good. We had a lot of time to really talk, and that was really what gave me the time with Kenny and his wife to approach where they can really find healing. So it's been tough, but it's been good.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to make a little report, I guess you can call it a war story or two here in Uganda. This time I've extended my stay longer than I've stayed before at one time. And during that time, Keuzi and his wife came in, and we had a good conference and got a chance to zigzag across Uganda. We had many challenges, but since the training, a lot of our people are on the same page, and out of that time, we've been able to have five new churches come and say, after we taught there about making multi-generational, multiplying disciples, they have said, please, we haven't heard this before. We want to, how can we join your NGO? How can we get under this training? And there was one church in particular that I had never seen in Uganda, how they had about 20 young children from about age 5 till 13, that each one of them knew a multitude of scriptures, and they were still so humble and hungry that they wanted to be sure to be in this training from now on to develop as a multi-generational multiplying disciple. So then I had a bunch of young men, including my driver, that has come out as a much stronger disciple. He was very quiet, very shy, not having much to say. Now he's up at the podium, speaking back those things that we recorded as notes in the Tororo conference when Keusa was there, and getting in on the conversations, getting in on the calls, and a group of about 4 young men and a new school that has requested the training along with those other 5 churches. So the pastor and the members have personally just voluntarily requested, and they said, we need it, we must have this. So I'm really excited about that, and can't wait to increase our Zoom call training, see these people deployed in their various communities and throughout the country of Uganda.
Good word.
Good word, sure.
Good stuff. All right, Judge.
We're gonna call this thing to order, KUC.
Yeah, I think we're ready.
All right, man. Well, we'll just turn it over to the right high, very honoring KUC Donnie, who will lead us this morning. So you may proceed, Council.
All right, good morning, man. Always privileged and honored to be here with you guys. I always get a lot out of our studies. I apologize for my video. I'm still having problems on my computer. I'm not sure what to do about it. No matter what I do, I uninstalled several apps and reinstalled them, but when I turn my video on, it'll fade out. So I don't know if it's corrupted or what, but still working through that. So I apologize for having my video turned off. Let me ask this, John Criswell, do you have your Discovery Bible? Are you on your computer where your Discovery Bible is?
No, okay, I'm on my phone this morning.
Okay, all right, no problem. You guys know I like to put the passage of verse up on the screen. So I don't know if anybody is able to do that, but just at different times it'll be great. But we're gonna start off with review anyway, right? So you guys know that. But we were looking at a couple of things. Excellent. Yes, excellent. Let's go to Proverbs 23 and 23.
I've only quoted that verse about 30 times since last week.
All right, then. We got about 70 to go.
Hey, KUC.
Yes, sir.
Hey, before we get started, can we welcome a couple new folks?
Oh yeah, please do. Please do.
Okay, I see the number 4352. That's Mr. Austin Tinsley. He's calling in. He and I are in Project 200 together.
You guys are invited where?
We're in Project 200, which is a men's disciple group. In fact, we had a summit last weekend in Ruston. We had about 100 men together, just growing deeper in Christ. But, Austin's calling in for the first time. Austin Tinsley.
Excellent. Welcome, Austin.
And then I see Ken. I'm not sure if that's Ken Atier or a different Ken. But another brother of mine is Ken Atier, and he's called in before. Ken, is that you?
Yeah, that's me. That's me, Web.
Okay, yeah, Ken Atier, he and I work together at Halliburton. I think he's called in one other time, but we haven't heard from him yet either.
Okay.
Welcome, guys.
All right. Hey, Chris, will you pinch out and widen, enlarge your words? If you're on a computer, if you pinch out, just like you pinch in, it'll enlarge those words for us. Or zoom out.
Is that any better?
Keep going, keep going. Keep going. Keep going, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Give me about 3 more clicks. 1 more. All right, that'll do. It's pretty good, fellas.
Good, great.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, so we were looking at this verse as we study where we gain understanding about what a proverb and a parable is. This is a proverb, but we're looking and viewing these as parables, and we're going to dive deep. What I hope to accomplish today is, one, I want us to do a review on this particular parable by way of a proverb, but also I want us to really review everybody's understanding of what a parable is. And then I want us to start looking back in Luke 14 as we learn how to outline and interpret parables for ourselves. So that's our goal. From what you guys remember, what did we learn about this particular proverb that we're looking at? Buy the truth and do not sell it. Also get wisdom, instructions, and understanding. So what is it that stood out last week that you guys remember that we learned from this?
That there's a significant exchange that happens in the purchase or the acquisition of the truth.
Say that one more time.
There is a significant exchange that happens in the acquisition or the purchase of the truth.
Yeah. There's a lot, a significant exchange, yes. And we complete that exchange every time we study, every time we learn, every time we're taught. We go through this exchange, or we attempt to go through it. But yes, there's a significant amount of exchange. All right, excellent. Anything else?
Give up everything for it, and do not give up anything, and do not give it up for anything.
All right, excellent. One more time.
Give up everything for it, and do not give up anything for it.
So we want to give up, we want to be willing to give up anything for it, but we shouldn't give it up for anything. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, excellent. Anything else?
There was a statement that was made that we picked up on last week. If the pain of change is the same as the pain of remaining the same, nothing will change.
Say that one more time, Dr. Fred.
I'm going to defer to, okay, if the pain of change Andrew, Andrew, you can help me out with this if you don't mind. If the
All right,
pain,
if, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. You got it. You get it right.
If the pain of change is greater than the pain of the same, you will stay where you are.
That's good.
And really what that's
And I
talking
like
about is perception.
What'd you say, Andrew? It was talking about what?
I said, really what that statement is talking about is perception. But
Yeah,
really what it
right.
is, to be quite honest, is it's short-sighted perception.
Man, I have used that so much. That really it just speaks volume of people who are struggling with addiction, you know what I mean? And all of us as well, but I can just relate with that so much because you know, when you're stuck and when you live a life of addiction for 15 or 20 years or 10 years, it's like it seems like change is so foreign, you know what I mean? Because you're so used to that lifestyle, and it's like you just almost you're hurting and you're struggling, but it's almost like you don't know another way, and it's really that first initial step that is the biggest one, you know.
Hey Andrew, can you repeat that for me?
If the pain of change is greater than the pain of the same, the person will stay where they are.
And then you added
Yep.
another, you added another little sentence right after that.
Well, I said it just a minute. I said it's what that is about is short-sighted perception.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Meaning if the person stays where they are, if they see so much pain to actually acquire truth from God, and they do nothing about it, they're unwilling to do it. What that means is that they've had short-sighted perception.
Yeah.
So, excellent.
Well, that's good. You know, as soon as I heard that, I thought of Bradley. You jumped in there, but I thought of Teen Challenge immediately.
Yeah.
Man, that's just written all over it.
This is what I actually used at the jail. It spoke to me so much last week. This is the statement that I opened up with when we went to the jail Monday night, and I just went from there with, you know, very short testimony, you know, but it was good, man.
You know, it's
Okay,
pretty
yeah,
easy. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Danny.
Well, I'm just going to say it's obviously when I hear Bradley talking about, you know, the addiction and the pain of staying the same, you won't change, and you know, it's very easy to see and easy for us to identify with that. I'm speaking for myself now, but you know, I think those others that may not struggle with addiction, we may have another addiction. It could be influence, power, money. There's all kind of addictions. You know, not all of them chemical, but that's some of the addictions that I think that, you know, that I deal with, that I have to. They're so subtle, you know, and you can hide them. But are they really in your heart? Are you really willing to give them up? You know, it's just kind of the addiction, the chemical stuff, and it's such a outward expression. You can see it, and it's so. Bradley, your work is unbelievable. I mean, that need is so great. What you're doing, what y'all are all doing in that work. But those of us that don't have that addiction, we may have some other ones we have to deal with.
I'm having the privilege of mentoring a couple of guys that have been through their program, and it's been a real blessing for me. Got a guy in our discipleship group, 2 of them now who joined our discipleship group. They went through the program with Bradley and those guys over there.
Casey, I don't want to get us off track, but just to give a follow-up verse to that, because it fits within, get truth and do not sell it, or buy truth and do not sell it, get wisdom, instruction, understanding. So that's the core thing that we're looking at. But a follow-up verse to the change, which we got to get this follow-up verse, would be Hebrews 12:11, which says, "No discipline at the time seems pleasant, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness for those who have been trained by it."
Yeah, definitely. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Yeah, and one of the reasons why, I think I mentioned it last week, one of the reasons why I always keep Proverbs 23 and 23 just in the forefront of my mind, as well as all of my studies, is it highlights the interaction that God wants us to have to possess whatever it is we're to possess when we study. You know, there's always an exchange. There's a buying of God's truth. Even now, you know, our commitment to be here produces some exchange. You know, whatever else I could have done, sleep, coffee, movie, TV, you know, work, family, whatever, we've exchanged that to be present now in hopes to obtain more of God's truth. So we utilize this every moment, and it's really to put it in perspective, because we talked about it. There's no material resources on earth that has any value that would allow us to purchase God's truth. So the purchasing of God's truth is within. There's something within each of us that God expects us to exchange in order to obtain his truth. And we talked about those. What were some of those things we talked about that we use as a medium of exchange to purchase God's truth?
Time and resources.
Time. Anything else?
Effort, commitment.
Yeah, effort, commitment.
I have to
Discipline.
commit my soul to acquire truth, which includes mind, will, and emotions.
Yeah. So it's my mind, my will, and my emotions, my soul, the totality of self, you know. And so that's the expectation God places on obtaining his truth, because we're to become what we learn. So we have to give up our soul. We have to give up the mind, every part of the faculties of our mind, you know, in our soul, you know, our will and heart, the effort, the efforts and the determination and the tenacity, you know, and the focus comes out of our will, you know, the efforts, you know. And so, yeah, so there's a commitment, and the truth, we talked about it in their culture. What would someone in their culture refer to God's truth as? Ghana, which is the Hebrew word for truth. But if you mention Ghana or Kana in their culture, and they knew you was talking about God's truth, what most likely would they say or reference in God's truth?
Torah.
Yeah, they would most likely say Torah or Torah, which means what?
Getting the mark.
Yeah. Or what? It's a little bit more to it. Yes.
The
teaching of God that hits the mark.
Yeah, yeah. So
Say
they
that again.
reflect back to God's teachings that hit the mark. Come on, somebody else. Somebody said something. Thought somebody else had a comment.
I just asked Danny to repeat that.
Okay.
It's the teaching of God that hits the mark. That's one thing we said that a Torah was.
Yeah. Okay.
Teaching of God that hits the mark.
Thank you.
Hey, I missed 1 week and I missed it, y'all. This is good stuff right here.
Me too.
Well, some of us, Andrew and Dr. Mack and Sam, I think on this call, we have a new disciple that we're working with. And we have watched him truly submit his mind, will, and emotion to buy truth.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
guys, there's not anything more powerful than to see a grown man submit those things to buy truth.
Hey,
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yes, sir.
you guys in Shreveport, man, y'all should get together and I could get y'all with Jonathan Nugel, which Andrew knows him already. Y'all should get together and think about going over to our Shreveport reentry house and maybe once a month or something, and just having some time with those guys over there. I think that'd be a great opportunity for y'all and them.
Man, that sounds great.
I'll
Sam,
call-
Sam,
I'll
did you
call
hear that?
Jonathan on that today.
Yeah, that's the house over off of Stoner, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah, I know that they would love that.
Can anyone spell that word? What is it? Ghana? Or put it on the chat.
Jeff can spell it.
I think it's QANAH.
yeah, you
I
got
think.
two variants of how it's transliterated, because again, this is a transliteration. So you can use the G, the English G, letter G, A-N-A, or G-A-N-A-H, or Q. A lot of places you'll see the Q, Q-A-N-A-H, or Q-A-N-A.
I got it.
And what does that word specifically mean?
Truth.
I got Torah. That word means truth.
That
Yes.
word is
Buy.
buy, get,
Buy.
and acquire.
Oh,
No, I'm sorry. Bye. I apologize. My bad. I'm sorry. Bye.
okay.
Emet is truth. By us. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry.
Means acquiring something through
Yeah.
purchase, Wayne. That's the definition.
Okay.
Somebody gave us. Means acquiring something through purchase.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It's to procure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Which, when you use those words, it kind of takes you into the deeper thoughts of the exchange of a purchase. So that's kind of what we talked about. And when we talk about, what we're purchasing, God's truth, it's a Hebrew word called emet.
And spell that when.
E-M-E-T-H.
Truth. Okay.
And this is
That
similar
means-
to the pearl of great price.
Yeah.
So that's basically mean the same as Quana. Emet.
No, you meant two different words. You see buy here. We see buy, That's the purchase of procurement to exchange. Kanach, the purchase of it. Emet is what you're purchasing.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. And we talked about this peculiar statement of not selling it, right? If we think about, if we just take our mind to think about a store, retail, or a local market, there's always the next step in purchasing something is selling it, right? For a higher value. But here, God places a command for us not to sell the truth once we obtain it. When we think about God's truth, we think about God's teachings, and we think about, this group, look at this group of all the investors, life investors. You guys just got through talking about war stories of investment, just scenarios of our lifestyles that engage and involve the giving away of God's truth every day, but yet God commands us not to sell it. What do we talk about when we said, what does that mean? How do we carry that out? How do we obtain God's truth, but we want to give it away and not sell it?
Did we talk about transfer but not selling it? And we had that somewhere. To transfer it, but we don't sell it.
Yes. Good, Danny. Yes. Anybody want to add to that?
I get the transfer part.
Yeah.
But what do you mean by do not sell it?
All right. So we talk about, let's look at this word, emeh. When we look at this word, and we look at the Hebrew definition of it, all right, it talks about just like you would build a structure or a statue to stand up erect. That's the metaphorical definition of truth, is to make something stand up erect. And so that's what happens inside of us when we obtain God's truth. The truth in us is erected within us, right? And it's like never ever destroying the erected statue or structure of truth inside of us. So that means don't forfeit it, meaning don't compromise it, always use it. Anytime we know it's true and we don't stand on it, we forfeited it and we caused it not to stand up erect in our lives. We hadn't utilized it. We see that compromise in everyday life every day, right? And so this is what God is instructing us about this truth. All right, let's just use something simple as the Great Commission. Understanding the Great Commission. God commanded us to make disciples of all nations, right? And as soon as we begin to compromise and try to live a lifestyle other than that, we've sold the truth. We've caused it to be forfeited in our lives. So here God is saying, buy it, make the exchange, make the necessary sacrifices, give up your totality of your total self, obtain it, but always use it. Transfer it, but never stop using it. Even in the transfer of truth, we talked about the purpose of a pipe as a conduit, and we're those conduits of this truth. Is the goal is for it to reach another destination. However, in the water flowing through a conduit or electricity flowing through a conduit, that conduit got to hold that electricity current, that current. All right, it's going to feel that current. All right, every time the flow of it happens, the conduit feels the current. So we're the current. We're gonna live with the truth. We're gonna get wet by the truth, and we're gonna live by it. But we always transfer it, or the goal is for it to reach another destination. And so we know this, we understand this, and we have to, formulate our lifestyles. I keep saying lifestyle because it has to become a lifestyle,
So correct me if I'm wrong or if I'm too simplified in this thinking. But so how I translate what you're saying is, so if I have traded my carnal life for God's truth, for my to live spiritually, and then every time I go back to putting something carnal, something of this world ahead of that spiritual life, then I'm basically selling back God's truth for something worthless, for something that does not have that value. So I have to never sell that truth and never turn back to that carnal life that I've already traded in.
I like
That's my takeaway for today.
Yeah, I like it, Sam. It's good stuff.
Yeah, that was good. That's putting it so the goats can get it.
Yeah, I like it. Somebody else had a comment?
Tell me what that means, Dr. Fred, putting it where the goats can get it.
I'd like to hear repeat it one more time.
Sure, when sheep and goat are eating together, goats eat to the ground lower than sheep do. So the sheep won't eat if they're there with the goats. So when you put it so the goats can get it, you're putting it down real low.
I love that. You simplified.
I like it,
Getting it on down there.
And you broke it down like a shotgun.
That's awesome.
Excellent. So and again, this is a framework that I place before me when I study. This is something that always rests in my heart, and I'm always cognizant of it as I study. Is this is the exchange, and again, some people in their studies say don't take all of that, or we give up. But verses like this remind us not only does it take all of this and some, right? And then once I obtain the truth, the goal is for me to always live by it. We say do not sell it. We always live by it. It's the guiding efforts of all of our activities in life, right? And he says, not just truth only, but we talked about the polysyndeton construction of this. Some translations don't do just, this is even the one we're looking at is a newer, a modernized, New American Standard Version, but the correct English structure of the sentence would actually say, buy the truth and do not sell it, comma, and wisdom, comma, and instruction, comma, and understanding. So even when we just looked and we see these ands, multiple ands, we recognize the sentence structure as a polysyndeton construction, and we talked about that. It's equally balanced. So that means wisdom and truth should be applied equally and have equal importance, and applied at the same time, or once obtained. So once I get truth, I get wisdom. And once I get wisdom, I get truth. Once I get wisdom and truth, I get instructions. And once I get instructions, I got wisdom and truth. The same way with understanding. So it's equally balanced, equally influenced, equal significance, equal importance, polysyndeton.
All right, KUC, can you define what you mean when you say you're differentiating between wisdom, understanding, and instruction?
So you said,
Did you give a definition to those last week?
so when you say that one more, ask that one more time, Judge.
All right, we're talking here, are you talking here about wisdom, understanding, and instruction? It's all used at the same time. It's a polysyndeton. But so obviously they have some different meanings to them. In truth, it was a definition given to the distinction between wisdom, understanding, and instruction?
We had not gotten to those.
Okay.
We had not. Not. All right. But yeah, so let's do that. Oh, so just like we looked up truth, emet. All right, let's look up the Hebrew word for wisdom. Chris, I'm gonna need you to control this again.
Hakma.
And pull it up on the screen for everybody. There you go.
Hakma.
And Chris, if you click over to the right, you can pinch out or if you click over to the right, go back to the way you just had it.
Move the window over, yeah.
Just a little bit. And yeah, if you pinch over to the right, yeah, there you go. You can enlarge that. Let's go back up top. Go up top a little bit. All right, there we go. So we're looking at the Hebrew transliteration of wisdom in this verse. And so we often hear, you know, in American culture, you know, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. You know, I remember being in elementary school in the first grade and having some kind of event at school. I don't know why I remember this, but I remember there was a statement going on about how knowledge was power, you know, and they had it printed out on banners everywhere. Knowledge is power. And they had, you know, trying to introduce us into, you know, the first grade where you start reading books, you know, and reading for the first time and things like that, you know. And I often looked at that statement, knowledge is power, but I realized it's an untruth. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge without application has no power. And so we talk about wisdom. Wisdom is the result. This is my definition from what I understand about wisdom. Wisdom is the results of applied knowledge. Wisdom is the results of this skillful application of knowledge. You know, it's the outward reflection of knowledge applied the correct way. That's wisdom.
Hey, well, restate those last things.
Yeah. So wisdom is knowledge applied. Matter of fact, to go even deeper, wisdom is the success of knowledge applied. It's the outward reflection of the skillful application of knowledge. Wisdom is the outward reflection of the skillful application of knowledge. It's the result. Matter of fact, let's go a little bit deeper into the mind of Jewish thinkers. Now we talk about Torah being the teachings of God that hits the mark. Once God teachings causes you or I to hit the mark, that's the wisdom observance. Once the teachings of God hits the mark, it gives a reflection of God's wisdom. And that's our goal. All right, that's our goal.
Hey, KOC, can I, with the word wisdom, living life, living life with thoughtful action based on good knowledge.
I like it. One more time.
Living life with thoughtful action based on good knowledge. Because you're right, it requires wisdom, thoughtfulness, and being open to instruction and guidance.
One more time with that, living life with thoughtful.
Living life with thoughtful action based in good knowledge. And it requires reflection, thoughtfulness, and being open to instruction and guidance.
Larry, where'd you get that?
From the Holy Spirit.
Just know it. Is that from your head or man? That's
Well,
good
Judge,
stuff.
Judge, why you be surprised, man?
I ain't surprised. I ain't surprised at all.
What's up?
That
I tell you what, I wish when I was a judge I knew this stuff.
But knowledge,
but I didn't.
One more time, Larry.
All right.
Go over it one more time, Larry.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Living life with thoughtful action based in good knowledge. Wisdom requires reflection, thoughtfulness, and being open to instruction and guidance.
Oh man. Humility right there.
Well, it's like in Proverbs, the fool in the book of Proverbs has shut down all this down and chosen to live by kind of the whims of desires and feelings, which it results in the sorrow. It's a sorrowful outcome in that regard. But wisdom, guidance, and instruction from the Father is available to us all the time.
That's off the chain.
And being open to what?
I don't know if I said being open. I said it's available to us at all time, or being.
No, he's talking about your first definition: living life with thoughtfulness, thoughtful action based in good knowledge.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Then requires wisdom requires reflection. It requires thoughtfulness and being open to instruction and guidance.
Being open to instructions and guidance.
Correct.
Good stuff. All right. So and all of this is helpful. We kind of, we know these things, we understand them, but it helps as trainers, as teachers, as transfer, as vessels and conduits of God's truth to transfer to someone else. All of these word expressions helps us. So good stuff. Thanks, Larry.
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at instruction. Chris, if you will. Musa. All right. So when I see this, and hopefully one day, let me see.
Second.
Do I have it available?
2 Timothy 3:16 is what I see.
Come on now. Now, you guys always ask me about where does where does this, wisdom's instruction and understanding of, the Hebrew culture come from, right? Man, I was blessed to start. If you guys looking at your screen, this was one of several first basic or foundational teachings to start looking at scripture from the mind of Jesus. Can everybody see my screen?
No.
You have, if you're watching here, sometimes you just gotta flip your screen. If you're on a computer, Jeff, click on your Zoom and you actually got multiple screens you can choose from. If you're on the phone, you gotta swipe to the right or swipe left or tablet, and you can see our video faces. Can some of you guys see this now?
Yeah, I see Musar, M-U-S-A-R.
All right. Now, okay, you looking at all right. Chris, you might have to stop sharing your screen. That way we know everybody get it.
Yeah.
All right.
What we're gonna have to do.
All right. Can everybody see this now?
Not yet.
I don't now. I see you. Okay.
Everybody's picture, yeah.
I got two pictures on here. Don't follow the one with my voice. Look for the one that's muted.
The one that's mute.
Yeah.
I don't see anything.
I don't see nothing.
Yeah.
I see Wayne right now, Jeff.
Yeah, I see it.
I
Hold on,
see
let me-
everybody up here.
let me
What are
do-
you talking about?
All right. Now follow my voice.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, there you go.
All right.
I see.
So can you guys see it? Is it reflecting right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Perfect.
Somebody
Yes.
spell this for us.
H-A-Y, capital
Y.
capital.
Yeah, there you go. Let's start over. Come on.
Capital
H.
H. Go ahead, Judge. Look like your mic is open.
Capital H, small a, capital Y, E, S-O-D.
All right. Very important. All right. So that's a Hebrew word. Let me switch back over so we can stop my God. All right, here we go. So that's the Hebrew word for the foundation. So when you talk about learning foundation or fundamental truths from the Jewish perspective, that's the study we will go through. When we wrap up on our study of parables, that's the next thing I hope we transition into, if God says the same. All right, it'll help us understand better Jesus's and his disciples' mindset, Jewish thoughts, concepts as we read the Bible. And so very important. But I bring that up. Come on, reflect back to your screen, Chris, with our Proverbs. And the reason why I bring that up is because when we look at these different words, and I see Musar, and we talk about it being related to instructions, correction, discipline, chastening, the first thing I reflect back to is things I learned when I studied Higher Soul. So I know in the Jewish mindset, when they see instruction, when they see discipline, chastening, and correction, the first thing they think about is a pedagogue. All right, pedagogue. All right, that's a child conductor. That's kind of like homeschooling your child. When it's a small learning setting, and that particular pedagogue environment deals with discipline, correction, chastening, training, instructing children. So that's the first thing I think about. And I'm almost certain, you know, when a Hebrew person sees these words, or a Jewish person sees these words, they're thinking about a pedagogue situation or environment, you know, child conductor training. All right. And that's kind of what I reflect on when I see these words, you know. So yeah.
K is Musar, is that does that come out of Proverbs 23:23?
Yes, that's the exact word out
For
of
what?
Proverbs 23:23 for instructions.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes. All right. And so once again, we look at truth as the producer of it, but we also look at truth having equal importance as both of those, wisdom and instructions. And we look at them being applied equally, simultaneously. Once we learn one, we learn the other, then it should be applied equally, with equal importance, equal application, equal significance, you know, equal influence.
Yeah, the Hebrew listener would have gone back to Deuteronomy chapter 6.
True.
I know about it.
True. They definitely would have. Immediately. Yes.
And as a Gentile, we go to 2 Timothy 3:16.
Yeah. Which is another one of my favorite verses, as well as another teaching I've spent several years just reflecting, studying, looking back at. So yes, a lot of truth, a lot of significance in that. So yes.
Hey, Les, while we were talking, yeah, go ahead.
Casey, what is when we were studying Luke 6:40, I remember either you or Suit bringing up a Hebrew word for hologram. I'm trying to remember what that was. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. Suit brought that up. Yeah, I think Suit brought that up, but I remember us discussing that as well.
What's kind of hit me as we're talking through this is that sometimes there can be two different truths that do not exactly agree, and they definitely don't agree when you get deeper into them, but they seem somewhat close, but their applications might look somewhat similar. But when you really dig into what's going on, you get to a different source. And what's hitting me with, as we're talking about wisdom and instruction and understanding, all of this is for what purpose? That we would get back to the source of God himself.
Yes. Oh, yes.
We also spoke, one thing we spoke, I wrote down last week that we hadn't mentioned is, I don't think, it says, we said truth is a confirmed reality.
Yes.
Obtain this goal. So a confirmed reality, obtain this goal, wisdom, truth, and understanding.
Good stuff. Thanks for bringing that back, Danny. Yes.
What was the last phrase there? It's a confirmed reality. What?
Well, truth is a confirmed reality. I'd like to discuss, what does that mean exactly? Confirmed reality. That means it's confirmed in our heart some way. Reality. Obtain this goal, wisdom, truth, and understanding. And that's what we've been talking about, wisdom, truth, and understanding. But before that, I just had a note, truth is a confirmed reality.
Yeah, we were talking about we were talking about it. Just think about the recognition at the point whatever subject matter is recognized as being truth. at that moment, it becomes real to us, because before we recognized it as truth, it wasn't a reality in our lives. So when we look or summarize what truth is, it's a confirmation of the reality around us, or the information. So we say truth is a confirmed reality. Yes. And it just helps us think about it in a different way. Come on, Danny.
Well, I'm just sitting there thinking about that, and those of us that believe Scripture is without error, and that's really the only place we can get truth and know it's actual truth. Correct?
Oh yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
I mean, there's a lot of people think truth's floating around, but the only confirmed truth is one that stand the test of God's word.
Yeah. Which makes us think, also makes me think about, just how much the word of God is challenged by, different people today as not being true. And basically what I tell them is, well, you got to convince me it ain't before you get me to believe something else. I'm too convinced. So
Yeah. Coach, recently I had to teach a group of people on leadership, and the executive director came to me afterwards and said, you had so many scripture references in that talk. This was more of a Sunday school lesson than it was a talk on leadership. And all I could tell him is, show me truth and I will teach it. And no one can show you truth outside the word of God.
Yeah, Jeff, that's what you were saying, Jeff. What I'm hearing you say is, hey, that's the only truth I know that can be absolute.
That's exactly right. I mean, everything else is somebody's opinion.
Yeah.
And so I told him, I said, you want me to tell the truth? That's the only place I know.
That's it. It's good stuff.
Hey, may I give a quote?
Please do.
From John Calvin wrote this in 1541. Here's what he said. He said, the whole sum of our wisdom. So he was talking about the whole sum of our wisdom is this: wisdom, that which deserves to be called true and assured, broadly consists, here's where it is, of two parts. Number one, knowledge of God. Number two, knowledge of ourselves, or knowledge of man. So it's two parts: knowledge of God, knowledge of ourselves. The purpose of the first is to show not only that there is one God whom all must worship and honor, but also that he is the founder of all truth, wisdom, goodness, righteousness, judgment, mercy, power, and holiness. We must learn, therefore, to expect and ask these things from him, and with praise and thanksgiving to acknowledge that they came from him. The purpose of the second is almost done. The purpose of the second is to show us, here we go, our weakness, misery, vanity, and vileness, to fill us with disparity, distrust, and hatred of ourselves, and then to kindle in us the desire to seek God. For in him is found all that is good, and of which we ourselves are empty and deprived.
I'll preach.
Yeah, man. One more time.
Can you? Man, I'd love to get a copy of that.
Yeah, one more time in the recording for us. And that way, at least when we listen to it and take notes, we got two pass-throughs of it. One more time for us.
All right, here we go. Hang on, I got to get back to it. All right, and I'll. Yeah, this will be it. So here we go. The whole sum of our wisdom is this: wisdom, that is, which deserves to be called true and assured, broadly consists of two parts. Okay, so here are the two parts: knowledge of God and knowledge of ourselves or man. So it's only in two parts: knowledge of God, knowledge of man. And that's the whole sum of all wisdom, which is what he's saying. Now, the purpose of the first of these is to show not only that there is one God, that there aren't multiple, there's just one whom all must worship and honor, but also that he is the founder of all truth, wisdom, goodness, righteousness, judgment, mercy, power, and holiness. We must learn, therefore, to expect and ask these things from him, and with praise and thanksgiving to acknowledge that they come from him. And I would just add, and nowhere else. The purpose of the second, referring to the knowledge of man or ourselves, is to show us our weakness, misery, vanity, and vileness, to fill us with disparity, distrust, and hatred of ourselves. And then to kindle in us the desire to seek God, for in him is found all that is good, and of which we ourselves are empty and deprived. Sorry, I get a little bit excited when I think about that.
Can I tie that into 23:23 that we started with? Because then what that is saying is that with those two, knowing God and knowing man, then what I'm really trading is worthless for the thing that is the most valuable in the universe.
That's right.
So really, I'm trading nothing at all to obtain everything.
Yeah, man.
That's
Good
right,
stuff.
Sam.
It's good stuff.
We don't have anything to barter with.
No, nothing of value.
That's right.
We got a lot to barter with. We got a bunch to barter with, but we got to realize it doesn't have much value that we're trying to trade for.
That's right, Danny.
Or no value.
That's
Zero
right.
value.
Zero value. That's right.
But that's that's where the sin part, that's where that other part of being aware of man comes in. Hey guys, it's a battle. It's not just like, oh, we're going to figure that out and we're going to trade it. It's going to be a done deal. I'm going to decide this morning and I got it will. It's not happening.
No, it's a fight.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Let's see, man, a lot of good truths, a lot of good nuggets. Thank you guys for sharing, expanding our notes. This is excellent. This is why we do this as a group. You know, we talk about that. So great stuff. All right. So let's continue. So we highlighted truth. We highlighted wisdom. We looked at instruction. Come on, Chris, click on understanding for us. Nah. See, you know, Brother Herb used to always say, you know, it's not important that you hear me say it or I say it, but that you get it, right? And what he means by you getting it is the sum of the truth, the sum of the whole matter is gaining understanding of it. And this is why we create and we implement the format we have. Questions, discussions, and answers is so we can make sure we leave with understanding. Truth without understanding is meaningless. There is no wisdom without understanding. The progression of wisdom starts with knowledge. And once I understand knowledge, I then have the opportunity and the potential to apply wisdom. Without understanding, there's no application of wisdom. All right. And so even with instructions, there's no application of instructions. There's no correction. There's no chastising. There's no discipline without understanding. And so, so now we kind of see the polysyndeton, implications. It takes all together to actually ultimately obtain the truth of God. God intends for us to obtain, when we think about his teachings that hit the mark. All right. So, so we see Banach. Now I want to point out one more thing. You guys probably already looked at it. You see, let me see your, go back to Banach and look at our Hebrew characters, Chris, to the left. See, those are the actual Hebrew words or characters, so when, yeah, there you go. So those are the Hebrew characters, but it's a bunch of markings for us. We can't read it. We don't read Hebrew or in the language of the communication in the Hebrew language. So they have to transliterate those characters to the English language, which is where we get Banach from. All right. So yeah. And so and then it takes us to that's the word, or you clicked on that kind of takes us into one of the origins of that word. Banach comes from buying or being. All right. So yeah. And I like that because we talk about discernment, right? And we know we can't have wisdom without discernment. Understanding is us obtaining the inner discernment of something, right? As we look at this definition, once I understand, I've just obtained my ability to discern or to distinguish between. Then the action or the applied outcome of that produces the wisdom, because I began to apply to life situations, which exemplifies or reflects wisdom.
Hello.
I'm hoping our silence was writing. Excellent. Anybody still writing, taking notes? Give it a few more minutes, Chris, and then we want to go back to the other screen. Did we lose you, Chris? Can you go back, Chris? Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry. Go back to, let's click on understanding. Let's look at Banah. Yeah, there you go. Right there. That one. Yeah. All right. So let's recap before we get out of here. All right. So what are some of our takeaways from today?
If we get an understanding, once we get an understanding, we've just obtained the ability to apply truth, knowledge, wisdom, and knowledge.
Yeah. And for the rest of our lives, they're simultaneously used, simultaneously applied, and have equal and simultaneous importance.
One more time.
Once gained, they're simultaneously used and they're simultaneously applied. And they have equal importance for the rest of our lives. So now, you know, the interpretation that I've come up with this entire verse makes sense. Remember, we talked about truth, God's teachings that hit the mark. I give up the totality of my total self for it. But remember, I shared this statement or summarization of it in my own words, is that we must be willing to give up everything for God's truth. Let me say it that way. We must be willing to give up everything for God's truth. Well, let me say it in another way. We must be willing to give up everything to obtain God's truth. So there's nothing in my life that I shouldn't be willing to sacrifice in order to obtain the truth of God. I must be willing to give up everything for God's truth. But I must not give up God's truth for anything. But I must not give up God's truth for anything. But I must not give up God's truth for anything. Now we're going to give different aspects of God's truth, concepts of God's truth titles for the rest of our time. And we've already done this, but I want us to really have this in mind. So let me say that again. We must not give up God's truth for anything, but we must be willing to give up everything for it. All right. So when we're talking about sacrificing everything or anything to obtain God's truth, but we refuse to give up it for anything. Now, that we've been focusing on is parables. So I want to translate a truth to a parable. The truth, the The aspect of God's truth is this, and here's a couple of questions for us to reflect on. Simple questions, obvious question, but what is a parable? Why a parable so important? You know, so when we think about Jesus's usage of a parable, that's a truth. It's a cultural truth. It's a used cultural truth. All right. And it was one of the most effective cultural truths that was used to produce change in the life of students.
Your definition says it's one of the most effective methods of producing transformative change.
Transformative change, yes.
Transformative change.
Yes. And so, and that's why we're focusing on parables, is if it was so effective, you know, in the Jewish culture and for Jesus, you know, why have we fallen away of usage of it in our culture? You know, as trainers, as disciple makers, we have to learn how to utilize parables in our training techniques and our training efforts and our training methods. And that's what we hope to do. That's why we're spending so much time on parables. What I love about a parable is the interpret. Remember, one of the definitions of the parable, or our understandings of a parable, is that it's a way for the students. It's a way the teacher or the rabbi elicits the interpretation from the student. A parable is a method used by a rabbi that elicits the interpretation from the students. A parable elicits the interpretation from the students. Remember, we talked about what interpretation is or means. The interpretation means understanding or the meaning of. So if I say it elicits the interpretation of the students, what we're saying is it elicits the meaning from the students. Now this is why, and this is where I want to close out on for the day, is if a parable is designed to elicit the meaning from the students. Let's think about what that means. So what we just said, which is the interpretation. All right. It means not only has the student possessed transformation within themselves, but they have the ability to produce it within someone else as well. All right, think about that. Because a parable is the most effective way a rabbi elicits, meaning a rabbi produces transformative change in the students. So if the outcome produces change, and also it suggests this, I know I'm giving a lot of truths here, that change is a byproduct of this. It also shows us that change is a byproduct of this, but it elicits the understanding or the interpretation from the students. And if interpretation means, I mean, if the word interpretation and meaning have equal importance, so if I say interpretation, I can say meaning. So it elicits the interpretation or it elicits the meaning from the students. The students possess the meaning of it. If the student possesses the meaning of it, this is where I'm trying to go to. To gain meaning, it takes understanding, it takes instructions, it takes wisdom and truth. to gain meaning or interpretation. If I gain interpretation, therefore I gain understanding, I gain instruction, I gain wisdom, and I gain truth.
One more time.
All right, if I gain interpretation, which means the meaning of, so if I gain the meaning of, which is interpretation, it means I gain understanding, I gain instruction, I gain wisdom and truth simultaneously. Simultaneously. Once I get the interpretation, simultaneously I get truth, wisdom, instruction, and understanding. Once I gain the interpretation, simultaneously I gain truth, wisdom, instruction, and understanding. Comments, questions, or reflections before we get out of here?
Kay, we talk about how Jesus is using the parables for understanding for the disciples, but he also used it so others would not understand. In Luke 8, it talks about how he used it. They didn't understand the sowing, and he said, explain it to us. He said, part of it was so that they wouldn't, some of the listeners would not understand because they were not chosen.
Yeah. And yeah, and also we think culturally from a rabbinical perspective about being chosen and not understanding. And this is something that was kind of hard for me to grasp for a long time, Brother Bill, is in their culture, when he talks about simply being chosen, what would a rabbi and a disciple know or reflect on as someone being chosen? Anybody?
Their relationship was based on those kinds of things.
Yeah. So it would be a direct result of the rabbi choosing this person as their talmidim or talmid, right? A student to do life with, for no less than 13 years of training, right? In their culture, no less than that, between 13 and 18, but no less than 13 years of training. If you're chosen by a rabbi, that's what that meant. So now we see the word chosen being used in this particular people group or in this culture among those two types of individuals. And then the next thing is, as a disciple of a rabbi, there's a particular yoke or doctrinal teaching that rabbi's students learn. And if you don't know the doctrinal line of teaching of that rabbi, there's a lot of the parables that rabbi uses that aligns with his doctrinal teaching that only his students should understand. So in some ways, when he talks about speaking in parables so those others won't understand, and then he uses the word being chosen because they weren't chosen, one of the thoughts or reflections that we have to keep in mind is it's not understood by those who aren't under his doctrinal line of teaching. Therefore, he explains it. Make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sometimes that can be the case. Sometimes that does that help, Bill?
Yeah, it does. It was just the converse of using parables so they would understand. And in this occasion, he says, I used it so that they would not understand. I mean, that some of the listeners.
Yes, 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 yes. Excellent, excellent. Any other reflections, thoughts? Oh,
I'm kind of getting a word picture as I think about today. And, you know, trees don't wiggle.
Mama said, you need them cold first. Then the refrigerator. I'll be right on.
Go ahead. I've muted Rick for a second.
Okay. All right. Trees don't wiggle. I mean, when we look out and we see something going on, trees don't wiggle. The truth is this: wind that can't be seen with the eyes blows, and the effect is that the wind wiggles the tree. But unless I know the truth of God, who is the creator and mover of the wind, my wisdom, instruction, and understanding will be just about as valuable as a man who actually believes that trees wiggle.
say it one more time.
Okay. All right. So trees don't wiggle. The truth is this: wind that can't be seen with the eyes blows, and the effect is that the wind wiggles the tree or the trees. But unless I know the truth of God, who is the creator and mover of the wind, my wisdom, instruction, and understanding will be about as valuable as a man who actually believes the trees wiggle.
It's good stuff. Good reflection.
Hey, Casey.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we're, you know, I was having that difficulty with Mark, going back to what Bill said about, you know, he that has ears, let him hear. And, you know, some people don't understand the parables. So Jesus was talking to his disciples, and so we can kind of infer that the Pharisees, who did not go along with Jesus' doctrine, didn't really catch the gist of the parables, because they didn't, you know, they weren't in line with Jesus as far as his doctrine, you know, as a rabbi. Is that kind of what you're saying?
In a similar sense, just like think about some of the things we spent a lot of time on Luke 6:40. We uncovered a lot of truths together as a unit about, you know, what Luke 6:40 means. Now you can take the same, you know, a different group of Christians and put them together, and they may not understand if we repeated back, you know, a parable within Luke 6:40, right? We've uncovered that it would probably be in a similar sense as well. And again, it's still a part of the training and learning in so many ways. And so he knew in some ways, he knew other people would not understand that because they weren't a part of the training. They weren't a part of the group. They weren't a part of the teachings or the doctrines around those concepts. All right. Although those moral truths make sense to people, the spiritual interpretation rests and lies with the rabbi, and those who know the rabbi can better discern the spiritual interpretation of meaning the rabbi is trying to convey. Sometimes it's obvious to all. Sometimes it's only obvious to those who understand the thought process and the doctrine of the rabbi. We just got to look within to try to see what helps us understand that as we read those verses. However, what Bill said is true. You know, there's times when it's used. Most of the time, we see in the Bible that a parable is not the interpretation of it hadn't been used or is not needed. Other times we see on 2 or 3 occasions we see it's used and it was given for the majority of the group did not understand. So hopefully that helps, you know. But just discerning and reading and studying, trying to distinguish those concepts that we see around it that will help us understand is what I'm trying to say. Make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that does make sense. Thanks.
Any other thoughts or reflections before we get out of here?
When you were talking about the fact that we cannot sell it, but yet we want it transferred in somewhat into a young disciple, that's kind of like investing. When we invest in something that is of great value and we realize that it's a good investment, we don't get rid of it, but we tell others about that and we give investment advice so that they might go buy it and not sell it.
Mhm.
Well, yeah.
So
Well, that's good, Jeff.
we're not giving it away. We're holding on to it, but we're giving investment advice
Mhm.
to those around us.
Yes. Yeah. And think about when we get that advice and we learn it, we apply it, we
Mhm.
understand it. What do with situations? We build around it and we build on it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's good, Jeff. That's really good because you're not selling it, you're investing it. A big difference.
Well, and you
Mhm.
can't sell it because based on the definition, it is what makes us stable. It's stability, it's erection, it's like Danny with foundation and structure. It holds the building up. And if we get rid of it, the building won't stand.
True. True. Any other takeaways or reflections, thoughts? And so when we pick up next week, I want us to again use this as a format to conceptualize, you know, why we're learning a parable or the meaning of a parable, but also the truth in that and the application of, you know, our understanding, but also we want to further look at now focusing on outlining parables for the purpose of interpretation. And so there's a systematic way that Jesus taught in the Bible. I don't know if we understood or saw that in those parables you guys mentioned, Luke and Matt and Mark, actually, when the disciples went back and asked Jesus to interpret a parable, you know, there was a systematic way or a method that he actually used that we should be familiar with to actually adopt the same system so we can interpret parables that we read in the Bible as well. And we'll look at that. All right. We'll look at that. We'll see how, as we outline those in a similar fashion, we're going to outline it in a similar way Jesus did as he interpreted those parables to his disciples as well. All right. And I believe that's a skill that was transferred and utilized among his disciples because one reason is because of this. The gospel narratives were written by his disciples, which mean they learned it and they transferred that truth the same way they learned it from him. And we now have a copy of those in our New Testament scriptures. So yeah. All right. Something I want you guys to be praying about as we conclude for the day as well. Let me see. Andrew and I, shared, September the 22nd through October the 1st, he and I, maybe a few other small invitational group will be traveling to Turkey. Istanbul. Istanbul is the capital city. We'll spend the majority of our time. We're hoping to connect with people or from Macedonia and Ephesus area around that way. So be praying about that time as we plan, as we prepare. But also, as you guys may have seen in world news, that on the opposite end of the eastern part of Turkey, there was a massive earthquake. Lives lost, damages. So be in prayer about that as well, please. And then also in April the 7th through the 16th, Zena and myself and a few others, know Dr. Fred and his wife, Wendell, I think he was on here today a little bit, and his wife, praying brother Will Credit get a chance to go. We hadn't finalized that part yet, but we'll be meeting some of our Haitian friends in the Dominican Republic in the DR, April the 7th through the 16th. Hoping to do a follow-up training with them from about a year ago. But also, you guys understand the dire straits in Haiti right now. Man, Haiti is probably the single most poverty-stricken nation right now. I would be willing to say Haiti is the poorest country in the nation at this moment, with all that they've been through, earthquakes, assassination of the president, gangs kind of running the country now. Man, just very, very hard for someone to survive, feed their families. Cost of living was very, very extreme, even before all of this. So keep that particular nation and country in prayer. But also, as some of our Haitian friends cross the border, what we hope to transfer is small business ideas and investments, so they can actually just simply take care of their families. So be praying about that as well, for us. So yeah.
Hey, I'll be Honduras and Romania next week. So y'all can pray for that. Wife traveling to Romania.
Bradley, we can't hear you. Get closer to something.
Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
There you go.
My wife and I'll be traveling to Honduras to go do electrical work in the mountains, and we'll share the gospel with people, same thing we did last year in March, and then we'll come back for 3 days, and my wife and I will go with a team of people to Romania. So y'all could be definitely remembering that when you pray too.
What are the dates for Honduras and Romania?
Honduras is March 4th through the 12th. Romania is March 16th through April 1st.
All right. Okay, thanks. We'll do. All right, Judge, I think that's our time for the morning.
All right, guys, we'll bring
bring the gavel down. Thanks for everybody. We'll be same time.